Sellers, we need to have a tiny intervention. And yes, this is about price reductions. Apparently, suggesting a $5,000 price reduction sometimes sounds to a seller like I just suggested we withdraw $5,000 from their checking account and put it in a little pile in the driveway and set it on fire. I'm supposed to give away $5,000? Say the sellers. Well, no, because I need you to stay with me here. You don't actually have that $5,000. I know it's devastating, but there's a concept about real estate pricing that I wish every seller understood before we ever put the sign in the yard. Your asking price is just your first offer to the market. That's it. You list the house for $425. You're essentially saying, "Hello, market. I have a lovely home. Would you like $425 for it?" And then the market gets to respond. Sometimes the market says, "Abso-freaking-lutely, let's go." Sometimes it says, maybe. And sometimes it looks at your house, it looks at the price, and says, pass, pass. No showing, that's a pass. 20 showings and nobody writes an offer, that's actually a louder pass. People come through your house, compliment the kitchen, tell you how beautiful it is, and say, "I love the backyard," and then to buy a house 3 streets over. That's the market sending you a handwritten note saying, "Beautiful home, wrong price, best wishes." And this is where things get very interesting, because then your real estate agent calls and says, "I think we should reduce the price from $425 to $420. And suddenly we're negotiating with ourselves, but we're losing $5,000. No, we're changing the offer that nobody accepted. There's a big difference. $425 wasn't sitting in escrow waiting for you. There wasn't a buyer standing outside with a briefcase containing $425,000 who suddenly grabbed $5,000 back because your agent mentioned a price reduction. Nobody had agreed to pay $425,000. We asked, and the market said no. That's the transaction so far. And this is where sellers can accidentally cost themselves more money. So let's dig into this. Because instead of responding to what the market is telling us, we decide as sellers to stand firm. We're not reducing it. Okay, so we wait. Another week. Then ask for an open house. Then another couple comes through. They love the countertops. They love the neighborhood. They love the backsplash you spent 3 months picking out. And then they buy something else. Now the listing has been sitting for 30 days. Then 45, then 60. And now the buyers start asking a completely different question. Not, is this a nice house? Now they're asking, what the freak is wrong with it? And truth to the matter is, nothing may be wrong with it. The house could be fan-freaking-tastic. But buyers don't know that. They see a listing that's been sitting there while other houses are selling, and they immediately turn into detectives. Why hasn't somebody bought this? Was there a bad inspection? There's something weird with the neighbors. Is the foundation held together with duct tape, bubblegum, and positive thinking? No, maybe we were just overpriced. But now we've created a second problem. Because eventually, after fighting the price reduction for 6 weeks, guess what happens? We reduce the price. Except now, we're not the exciting new listing at $420. We're the 57-day-old listing that finally reduced to $420,000. Not the same product in the eyes of a buyer. And there's another uncomfortable part of this conversation. The market doesn't care. The market doesn't care what you paid for the house. I know, it's freaking rude. The market doesn't care what your mortgage balance is. It doesn't care how much money you put into that kitchen or what your neighbor got in 2022. And it definitely doesn't care that Zillow told you your house was worth $463,742 at 2:17 on Tuesday afternoon. The market is incredibly inconsiderate about your feelings. Buyers are comparing your house to what they can purchase right now. They look at They're looking at your purchase price, your condition, location, and competition, more importantly. Finally, they're also looking at their monthly payment, then deciding whether your house wins, and that's it. And here's the part that sellers sometimes miss. Price reductions are not punishments. They're repositionings. We're saying, okay, we offered the market this house at $425,000. The market said no. Fine. How about 420? And maybe the market says, hey, now we're talking, because your asking price isn't a trophy. It's not a statement about how much you love your home. And it isn't a reimbursement request for everything you've spent on the property. It's a marketing decision. And the objective isn't to prove that we were right about the original price. The objective is to sell the house. So when your agent recommends a price reduction based on what buyers are actually doing, don't automatically hear, oh my God, I'm losing $5,000. Here, the market rejected our first offer. Let's make a better one. Because ultimately, you can argue with your agent. You can argue with the comps. You can argue with showing feedback. You could even argue with Zillow. I'm sure who you're although I'm not sure who you're going to speak to over there, but there's one person you can't argue into submission, and that is the freaking buyer. Either they write the offer or they don't. So remember, the asking price is your first offer. You get to make that offer, but the market, it gets the final vote.